Welcome to Pies Around the House. In this video, I'm going to show you how to add a socket to a ring circuit using a junction box under the floorboards. So normally I do a bit more planning for a video like this, but I was just doing a job where I'm putting some door frames in. The door frame is going to sit on a floorboard, and that floorboard needs to come out in order for me to add this socket to my ring circuit. So I thought, like every other job, this is a job that needs to be done now, so I better do this first. And while I was doing it, I thought, you know what, this might be a useful one just to show you, the viewer, because a lot of people have asked me this question when watching my other video of how to add a spur or a fuse spur. And also, before we get started, just to make a point, you can actually add a socket to a ring circuit right next to an existing socket, which is actually a lot easier if that's what you want to do, because you can just remove this socket, you can chase a little bit out of the wall, we can add a new socket there, and then do all our connector blocks behind the socket, assuming it's deep enough. If it's not, we can just make the hole deeper, use a deeper back box, and then put them in there. And like I said, that is a lot easier, it's a lot quicker, and you don't have to go under the floorboards. But in a situation like mine, I need a socket away from this one, and unless I want trunking all over the wall to that new socket, which I don't, then I'm going to have to go under the floorboards and connect into the wires or the cables on the existing ring circuit. So what I've tried to do here is line the camera up so you can see this socket, and I know because I rewired this house that this wall is chased, and these cables up to this socket come down this wall in some trunking or some conduit, and you can see just there they poke out the bottom. So these are those two cables. So I know that if I can cut into these two cables, I can extend the ring main. So if you look here, here's two posts for my stairs. I'm actually going to be putting some MDF down between these two posts, and I want the socket sat in that MDF, so a bit like when you put it in a wall in plasterboard. So this will be solid. Behind here I can have the wires coming up to my socket, so I need these to pop out somewhere around here in the floorboards. Now if you take a look back over there, you'll note that there is a joist by there. So coming back to my cables, these are the cables I'm after. So if you follow these through, and obviously I've just done a bit of jiggery pokery here, and I know that it's these two, so I pull them through to give a bit of slack, and what I'm going to do is cut into these two here. Now the reason I'm doing it obviously this side of the joist is I know I've got a free gap now straight down there all the way across, and then it can pop up underneath there, which would be perfect. If I go and make the cut by there, I've then got to drill some more holes to get the cable through the joist either there or down here. I've got no access down this area here, so basically the point I'm making is it's easier to do it here, so I'm going to cut them by here. Something else I'll show you quickly, I got my lap tester here. Now if you look, if I put that on there, that's beeping. That's because we've got a live current running through here. Same on there, okay, so these are both active. Now here I've got my lap socket tester that came in the same kit with that pen. I pop that in there and turn it on. There we go, now two green lights, that means correct. Basically everything's working. I'll turn that off because it's probably making a racket on the camera. But obviously before we get started doing this, I need to go and turn the power off. So I'm personally going to turn the power off on the consumer unit on the MCB. I'm also going to flick the RCD switch, because if the earth trips, it's just going to trip the RCD anyway. So I may as well just do that now because it always happens. Something to point out for you, if you're doing this, okay, this is my caveat, you have to make sure that it's safe. Whatever way you choose to do that, make sure your power is turned off before you start messing around with these cables. So I'm back, I've just been downstairs, I've switched off the MCB for my upstairs sockets to disconnect the power. I've also turned or flicked off the RCD, so there's nothing going to this now, and we'll confirm that now by checking with my testers. So there we can go, you can see there's no power there. Obviously this was just on, that's gone out. I had the radio on, that's now not working. So there's all these different things. I mean, a radio is not the way to do it, so don't hold me to that, but I've tested it, power's off, okay? Now you need to consider where your cables are going to come up through the floor. So basically, where do you want your socket and how the cables are going to get to the socket. I've marked mine out. I know I want mine sandwiched between two boards by here. I can then attach the socket at a later date to the front, and it means then inside my cupboard the old socket can still be used, but I've got one here for using a hoover or whatever. I'm just using a 14mm drill bit for this because we're only using 2.5mm twin and earth cable, and that gap will be plenty for two of those to pop out. The other thing to note before doing this is just make sure you know there aren't any cables directly below or any plumbing. So I've got my length of 2.5mm twin and earth cable, and I'm just going to feed this down that little hole. I'm going to get it to pop up to the sides where I need to connect to the other one, leave a bit of slack, and then we can cut it off. So if I put a little bend in it like that, just try to push it down and round a bit. Right, so I got lucky with that one. You can see now it's poking up over here. So if I cut these two off, that should be enough. Okay. So what I also need to do at this end is we need to leave enough for the height of your socket, which I think, I'll just double check now. I've done it to regulation standard. So yeah, 450. The bottom of your socket needs to be 450 off the base of the floor in modern wiring anyway. So that's what I'm going to do. Measuring with my tape. 45 is about by there. So I want that plus some slack. And then with my wire cutters, that's one done. Now I'll do the other. Again, I got a bit lucky there. I mean, this is only a short run, so I was able to grab the end. If not, you may need to use rods, or you could put something through, stick some tape and drag it back through. There's different ways to do it, but this has worked for me. I got my two cables sticking out there now. I'm going to cut this one off at the same length as the other one. So about right there. Probably done too much there actually, but best to be safe than sorry. Okay, so you can see now, there's my two cables coming out where I'm going to have the socket. So for now, I'm just going to leave those over here out the way. Okay, wrapped up. I'll sort those out in a minute. And I've got my two cables coming out over here. So I'm going to strip these using my automatic wire strippers. So you can see now those are stripped. Now we need to put a length of earth sheath over these two here. And you can hear the dog barking in the background. He's being a nuisance. He wants more food. Well, I'm going to have to carry on doing this a second. He's going to have to wait. Milo, shush. And there he goes, that. Okay, so that's those two done. Now we've got to cut into the other wires and cables and sort those out. I'll be back in a minute. The dog's going mad. The dog's got some chicken. He's happy now, so let's get back on with it. So like I said earlier, we've got these two cables here. I'm just going to double check now. Right, that's definitely one there. I'm just going to get my pen. I'm just going to put a mark on that just so I don't get the wrong one, because, you know, it has been known to happen. Right, I'm going to mark that one as well so I know where we are. Right, there we go. Right, so I'm just going to snip these now in the middle, right here. And don't forget, before we do this, we've checked all the power is off, okay? So now we'll do the same to the end of these wires or cables here. Oh, my strippers seem to be playing up a bit today for some reason. So that's that one. That one needs to go to there like that. And then we've got to do the same with these two. Now try not to get them all mixed up, keep them together, although it should be fairly obvious. And again, let's put earth sheath on all of them. Apologies for that grunting in the background. That's not me, that's the dog. He's now happy, all pleased with himself. There he is. Come to say hello, have you? Eh? Now you've had your food, giving me grief all day, had your walk, had your food, spoiled this one is. I'm going to be completely honest with you, the dog barking and going down there, I lost my concentration. I've just cut through a cable I didn't need to, so I'm going to show you how to rectify that now. So basically, the one cable on the original ring I shouldn't have cut, okay? I should have just left that, so I've now got a cut where I didn't need it. So what I'm going to do for the minute is I'm going to connect these two up, alright? And we're going to pretend that we never cut that. I'm just going to use these Wago 222 connectors to connect these up. This one I just did by mistake. I'm going to connect this back up, tuck it out the way for the purpose of this video, and we're going to pretend this one was straight through, but I'll pop it in the same junction box as the other one after. So for this, we place the live wire on that side, and we place the live wire of the other cable in the other side. Do the same, the earths, and the same with the neutrals. There we go. Okay, so with that one tucked out the way, right, a mistake there that I'm owning up to. Let's pretend that never happened. That was one length of cable we didn't need to cut, alright? So you can see this a bit more clearly. I've zoomed out again. So you've got your socket over here, your trunking. You've got your two cables coming here. Let's pretend we just snipped one, alright? So we snipped this one and we've got both ends here. So what we're trying to do is connect one end of the cable we snipped to one of our new cables that's coming under the floor that we just pushed through that hole, okay? So using the Wago connector, I'm going to take the live there and the live there. So we've now connected the lives up of the new cable and one of the old cables. We do the same with the neutral. Like that. I've lost my piece of earth sheath, so I'm going to cut another one. No, I haven't. There it is. And then we connect the earths together, right, like that. So you've now connected the one from your socket through to our new cable. So here's the cable under the floor going down here. So we've now got one connection here running through here up to there. When these are connected with the socket, the other cable goes back out down here, and that's this one, and we need to connect that to the other main cable that was under the floor already. So we'll do exactly the same again. We'll just pop the neutrals into one connector block like that, pop the lives into another, and we pop the earths into another one like that. So you can see now you've basically got your new two cables and you've connected them to the old run of the old one. So you just added that little bit of a loop and back and connected at both ends. Like I said, please excuse the mistake I made there. These things happen. But anyway, to make this compliant now with regulations, you need to put this in a junction box. So with the Wago connectors, you can use the Wago box junction box. And with this, to be honest, all we do is you wedge your blocks in like that. A bit fiddly. And you can get 3 of these blocks in there if they're the twin switch ones. If you've got 3 switch, you can only fit 2 into there. And then you pull your cables down into that bit there. And you could use 2 boxes for each connection. I'm going to fit them both into here. As you can see, it can be a little bit on the fiddly side. There we go. Once you push them in, you just want to try and get all your grey sheath into there, like that. And then what you do is you pull this over. You've got to clip it into place. It might need a bit of gentle persuasion. It usually does when you put all these cables in there. They never like to go in perfectly, I find. And then you just close that up, like that. Now I've still got a little bit of messing around to do here with this floor. So for the moment, I'm going to leave it like that. But to make this maintenance free and to be able to leave it in compliance with the regulations under the floorboards, then you need to cable tie through there and cable tie the box closed. Then if you look on the bottom there, there's 2 holes. You just pop 2 screws through there from the inside, and you need to basically screw this box to the joist first and then clip your cables into place like I just did, and then that meets compliance for the regulations as what's known as a maintenance-free junction box, which means you can leave that under the floorboards and you don't need to have easy access to it because they're flick switches and they're not screws. That's the idea behind that. I've now got to go and get another box and put it around this because I'm an idiot and I snipped through a cable I didn't need to, and that is pretty much it. Now at the other end you would just cut your cables to size and connect those into your new socket. Now currently my wall is not in place to have my socket, so I'm going to strip this with the wire strippers. I'm going to safely isolate the ends in some connector blocks for now so I can leave them in place with the power on, and then when the time comes I can remove the connector blocks and I can add the socket. So I'm just going to do that now. And don't forget, if like me, you are not putting the socket in yet, it is important to connect these up together. And the reason for that is because it is a ring circuit. And if you don't connect these cables together, then the circuit will no longer be acting as a ring. And it'll actually be acting as a radial circuit. And when I say radial circuit, I hope I'm not teaching you to suck eggs, but that just means it's not in a ring, it's just a cable that essentially goes out from the consumer unit into one socket, out into the next, and so on, and then it just terminates with the last socket. I'm just going to trim that down just quickly because that's a touch too long there. And because this is a ring, like I say, by doing this, I have now completed the circuit. Even though there's no socket attached, the live is going into there and back out and on round in the ring. Same with the neutral, in, back out, earth, in, back out. So I'll just hook that out the way there for now. Leave it behind the stairs. Right, so you can see now the lights are back on here. There we go. Power's on, everything's done. So a few weeks have passed. I've now got the front of my stud timber partition wall in. I've got my plastic back box in place and I'm now going to show you how to wire the socket. Now if like me you're using a plastic drywall box like this, I have done another video showing you how to fit these into place, and a link to that video will pop up on the screen now. I'll also put a link to that video in the description section below. If on the other hand you're coming up through a masonry wall and you need to chase a wall, then I've also done another video on how to do this, and again the link to that video will pop up on the screen now, and I'll put a link to that in the description section below. So the first thing to do is take a knife and cut out one of the entry holes you want. There's usually one at the bottom, one at the top and one at the back on these plastic boxes. I'm coming up from the bottom, so I'm going to trim this one out. There we go. So if you remember from earlier in the video, these are the Wago connectors that we put on to extend the ring. Well now I'm going to go and turn the power off following the same procedure as earlier in the video. Then we're going to remove the Wago connectors and then add the socket. So I've just turned the power off, I'm back. I'm now going to remove the connectors. I'm just going to remove the earth sheath a second because I'm going to strip the cable to give myself a bit more wire to play with. This is obviously a bit more difficult once the ends have been bent. Just to make this easier, I'm going to snip this down so I got nice straight wires, and then this outer sheath should just slide off. I'll just line that up with the other one so that they're both the same length. Just going to put my pliers on the end and just pull that off like that. I'm going to strip these wires about 20mm because we're going to double them over. I'll show you what I mean in a minute. Do we need to replace the earth sheath because obviously I've made those bare wires a lot longer now. And again, the way I do this is I just fold it like that and I go back about 20mm again and snip it like that. Do the same for the other one. I wanted about 20mm there. So now taking my pliers, if you just hold the plier so that the inside edge of your pliers is just over halfway this way. So if you imagine that's the middle of the wire there, the bare wire, you want to go just a bit towards the end, like that. And then as you bend around like that, you create a nice bend, then pinch it together. And what you should find, if I've done it right, is that by going just past the middle, by the time it gets the bend in it, you get a nice even fold. So that's bent back on itself. We can now push that into the socket. I'm going to do the same with the other ones. And as what I didn't do on this one as well was just give it a quick twist like that. It just helps it form together. I'm going to do the same with this one. Quick squeeze, then hold it lengthways, and again, just give it a twist like that. This will just help a bit when you're pushing it into your socket in a minute. So here's the socket I'm using, just a basic socket. If you look at the back of your socket, you'll usually have the screws by there, They'll be somewhere anyway. So just pull those out because we're going to need those to secure it in a minute. There we go, keep those to one side. The other thing to note is these little plastic caps. Now once you put your screws in, they are to be placed over the top of the screw heads there so that you hide the screws. I'm not actually going to put those in today, purely because I think I need to take this socket back off before I finished all this work because it needs filling and painting and whatnot. But that's what you do. So if you're not using them yet, just leave them set inside the socket. Now on some sockets you'll also find you get a spare set of these in the back, but these are budget sockets, so only one pair of those unfortunately, but there we go. So if you take a look at the back of the socket, they're all labelled up, these terminals. You've got a terminal there that's got the E, so that's your earth or your CPC. Over this side you've got your L, that's for your live, and down here you've got your N for neutral. So N for neutral is blue, L for live, that's brown, and your CPC is obviously the bare wire that we've been adding the green and yellow sleeve into. On the back of some sockets you may have two earth terminals. If you have, just put one earth wire in one terminal and the other earth wire in the other terminal. So first of all, we need to slacken off these screws on the terminals to be able to get our wires into place. And to do that, we just turn anti-clockwise using a flat bladed screwdriver like this. So just because of the way that I'm positioned to the camera, I'm going to start off by doing the earths on that side first. And these will always be the easiest because on a 2.5mm twin and earth cable like this, the earth wire is actually only 1.5mm, so it's a bit thinner. So making sure those are pushed right into place, I'm now going to tighten up the screw. Like that. Now on this particular socket, I've just tried to get this wire in there. It's not going to fit doubled over. So I'm going to snip these down and we're just going to put single bits of wire in there, not doubled over. So change your plan again. So I've just snipped those down now back to single wires. Obviously I've left the earth or the CPC wires doubled over because they're slightly thinner anyway. So it's good to have the resistance inside there. But like I said, I just couldn't do it with these, and you get that sometimes with sockets. So if you can't double them over, it's no big deal. So I'm going to pop that in there, that in there. So that's the two live wires. Then finally we're going to go in with the neutral wires at the bottom. You just use your finger to force that in with a bit of resistance while we tighten it up. So what you're looking to achieve is basically a nice tight fit. You want the copper from the wire touching the brass on the screw. You don't want this sheath inside touching that, but you also don't want any of the copper on display outside. Obviously, especially with the live, that could be dangerous. So once you're happy, all your wires are in place and it's all tightened up nicely, we can now push this back. And you'll notice here that this drywall box is a bit loose. Well, when you use the screws, the way they work is that will pull that back onto this piece of MDF or plasterboard if you're using that, and that will tighten the two together. With your wires behind there, you need to almost bend them into place, line up your socket and give it a good push like that. And once you're happy that it'll fit against there with not too much resistance, we can then take the screws from earlier, place them through the socket, line them up with the thread on the back box behind. I'm just going to start that one off with my finger like that. I'm just going to place this one through as well, line it up with the thread while I can see it over the back, and then bit by bit tighten up each side. And as mentioned earlier, with a drywall box like this, the clips on the back, as you screw them tighter, will push and click into place on the back of your wall, holding the socket tight to the back box. Before we fully tighten it up, you just want to either get a spirit level or just line it up by eye so it's level like that, and then just finish it off. There we go, job done. So I've just been downstairs, I've turned the power back on. I'm now going to use this socket to hoover up my mess. So hopefully you find this video useful. If you're interested in any of the tools or the products used in the video, I'll put links to those in the description section below. If you enjoyed the video, then please give it a like and don't forget to subscribe to my channel, press the bell icon for regular notifications. I've been Pies Around the House. Ta-ta, farewell.